Welcome to another episode of Mr. Plumb's Thoughts. I've been thinking a little bit today about doing a video on the Antichrist. Specifically, I was scrolling through social media and saw one of the many accusations that arise from people claiming that Trump is the Antichrist. And you get this about everyone. People have said Obama's the Antichrist, or Biden's the Antichrist, or Netanyahu's the Antichrist. Someone said Putin, right? Like, you just get people throwing out names, and most of these people probably haven't ever even opened up their Bible, let alone additional texts that tell us a little bit more about who he is. I'm sitting at my computer this time because for this video, I'm definitely going to need to be reading some quotes and some scriptures, just so that we can get all the right details out. I could throw most of this out off the top of my head, but I wouldn't be able to get the quotes exact. And so, I think especially if we're trying to prove if somebody is or isn't the Antichrist, it's probably a good idea to have the good quotes there. So first off, I want to say that Antichrist is actually an umbrella term. Anybody who claims to, or anybody who basically opposes Jesus Christ, or says Jesus didn't come, or anything like that. Anybody who stands in opposition to Jesus Christ is technically an Antichrist. And they're basically all the same thing. They all have the same spirit of Antichrist in them. And in fact, one of the earliest mentions of the Antichrist we have is actually before the book of Revelation. It comes from John, who also wrote Revelation, right? But in John, 2 John 1:7, he says, "For many deceivers are entered into the world, who confess not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an antichrist." So you have the basic definition of an antichrist right there. He also says in 1 John 4:3, he says, "Every spirit that confesseth not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not of God. And this is that spirit of Antichrist, whereof ye have heard that it should come, and even now already is it in the world." Now this one's interesting because he talks about the spirit of Antichrist, not just Antichrist in general. And latter-day Revelation and prophets have made it very clear that the Antichrist, is Lucifer, right? It's Satan. But when we're talking about in the flesh, there are definitely different figures out there that meet this. And one in particular comes from the book of Revelation, and this is, a lot of people call it the Antichrist of Revelation, or a lot of people just simply call it the Antichrist because some people don't understand that there's more. So we have Daniel. In the book of Daniel, he actually prophesied of the Antichrist first, as far as I can tell, and he said a tyrannical antagonist would arise that would quote, "speak great words against the Most High, wear out the saints, and think to change times and laws." So this guy will come in and just stir things up, right? And there's lots of leaders that kind of fit this role. Most leaders, when they come in, that their initial thing is to stir things up. So, we got to be careful just to, not accuse someone who's stirring things up as being an antichrist. A lot of people actually thought Daniel was talking about, I'm going to butcher this word. Okay, maybe not. I paused it for a second to actually look up how to pronounce it. It's pronounced Antiochus of Rome. Antiochus, yeah, that sounds about right. I probably wouldn't have said it exactly like that, but it's pretty close. But there's a lot of things with Antiochus that line up with Antichrist vibes, but ultimately when you start looking at everything, he just really didn't fit the bill. But we didn't know about it at the time, and this was thousands of years ago. So the next one is Paul. Paul said there would arise a man of sin, or a son of perdition, before Christ's return. He says this evil one will exalt himself above all that is called God, sit in God's temple, claiming divine honors, and work false miracles and signs to deceive many. He also taught that a mysterious restraining force was holding this figure back until the proper time. And so that's pretty interesting, because we know everything works according to the will and mind of God, right? So even if Satan wanted to push this guy out earlier, God's the ultimate boss when it comes to that. All right, so the main bulk of what we know about the Antichrist comes from the book of Revelation. And there's actually two ironically, the word Antichrist isn't found in Revelation anywhere. Instead, what we have are beasts. And there are two beasts in particular that people have pointed to and said that this is the Antichrist. Most say the first beast is the Antichrist. Some say the second, and I don't know. You can figure out what you think at the end of this video. So here's what it says, and this is kind of some longer scriptures here, so bear with me. So for the first beast, it's from Revelation 13, 1 through 7. And it says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power," and the dragon is Satan, "and his seat, gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth, speaking great things and blasphemies. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months, which is 3.5 years. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations." So there's quite a bit in there. And quite frankly, with just that passage, I don't think we would ever be able to identify the Antichrist. It just doesn't really tell us enough. We would be in this guessing game forever. The second beast is later in that same chapter, and it's in verses 11 through 18. And it says, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying unto them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image unto the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666, which translates to 666, right? This is where we get the common 666 is evil kind of phrase. Comes from Revelation. So that's like a whole wall of what, right? So in chapter 17, most people don't read forward when they're trying to figure these things out. They just read the passage and they're like, yeah, what is this? And then they're scratching their heads and they're like, I can't figure it out. Well, usually if you read forward a little bit, things become a little more clear. So in chapter 17, the angel explains these things to John. And this is in verses 7 to 18. And it says, "And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman," which we didn't cover here, but "and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns." Oh, look, the angel's going to tell us what it means, right? "The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they beheld the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth." Usually in Scripture, when it talks about mountains, there's various different interpretations. Probably the most generic interpretation is lands or continents. And this is interesting because we have 7 continents, right? So 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. So this is saying that the woman's reach would be around the whole world. "And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and another is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space." Now, we're not really sure if John was talking about, if there were 5 fallen in his day. Is this a prophecy of his day, which some people think it was, right? Some people think he was prophesying of the very immediate things that would happen following everything, with Christ and the apostles dying and whatnot. But we're here 2,000 years later, and the things that were supposed to happen didn't happen. So I think it's pretty clear that John wasn't talking about his day. He's talking about a future time. And so I think he's talking about the time when this beast arises, right? That 5 are fallen and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of hosts. He is Lord of lords and King of kings. And they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, unto the words of God, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. And what is this great city? It's Babylon, right? And so Babylon was a single place way back when, thousands of years ago. But now Babylon, the wicked Babylon, evil Babylon, has spread around the whole world. So it's intermingling with us all around the whole entire world. So he gives us quite a bit of information here on who this Antichrist is, and how things will happen and whatnot. But we're still a little confused, right? And we have been for 2,000 years. So I don't think that me reading this to you is suddenly going to give you the answers, right? I'm just kind of giving you what there is, and you can decide for yourself. So in the Didache, which I just learned is pronounced that. I used to call it the Didache, Didache. I just found out it's pronounced Didache. Who knew, right? So it's an early Christian manual, and in the Didache it says, then shall appear the deceiver of the world as a son of God, performing signs and wonders, and will say, the earth shall be delivered into my hands. So he's basically, gonna try to seize control. The Ascension of Isaiah, which is a 2nd century text, says, Belial, the great prince of this world, will descend in the form of Emperor Nero. And will do many wonders and lead humanity astray, but he will finally be destroyed. Obviously, he's not talking about an actual Nero, but someone in the image or likeness of Nero. So we don't really know what Nero looked like very well. Our statues they can give us kind of an idea, but even then, I don't think knowing that this person's going to be in the form of Nero is really going to help any of us identify him. Irenaeus of Lyons in 180 AD said the Antichrist will be a Jewish man from the tribe of Dan. It does sound like the way he worded it didn't necessarily sound like revelation, like he didn't receive this from God and was telling us. It sounds more like a logical conclusion. But that being said, it could definitely have been a revelation. I think Irenaeus was a very inspired man and did receive plenty of revelation. And he was probably one of the last ones before we entered into the great apostasy, and we lost the gift of revelation for over 1,000 years. But he also said that the Antichrist will sit in a rebuilt Jerusalem temple, proclaiming himself to be God, and will reign exactly 3.5 years before Christ returns and destroys him. Now, it's interesting. A lot of these say the Antichrist is going to proclaim himself God. But actually, let me read this next one first before I get into this thought. So Hippolytus of Rome says the Antichrist will mimic Christ. So if Christ was a lion, so too the Antichrist will be a lion. Christ was a king, so too will the Antichrist be a king. Christ began his ministry at 30, so too will the Antichrist begin his public career at 30. Christ performed miracles, so too will the Antichrist perform false signs and false miracles. He will pretend to be humble and righteous at first, winning followers with false miracles. He says the second beast of Revelation 13 is to be interpreted as the kingdom of the Antichrist together with his false prophet, noting, quote, he will make himself like the Son of God, setting himself forward as a king. Hippolytus is the first person we know that also identified Enoch and Elijah as the two witnesses slain in Jerusalem at the last day. It has nothing to do with the Antichrist. I just thought I'd throw that in there. Okay, the last one I'll cover here, and there's a lot of people who have said stuff on the Antichrist, so you can definitely dig in and find a whole lot more. I've covered what I consider kind of the biggest ones. So this last one is Hildegard von Bingen. She's a 12th century German? I think German prophetess. I don't remember. She's a prophetess, but where she was from, I don't quite remember. She said that the Antichrist will be born from a perverted woman who basically has slept around so much that she doesn't know who the father is of this child, and that she herself will be a harlot who was corrupted by the devil from childhood. And that's an interesting parallel because we know the mother of Jesus, Mary, she was given to the temple when so Mary was a miraculous birth. I don't know if you know much about the story about Mary, but she herself was a miraculous birth. And then she was given to the temple when she was like 2 or 3 years old, maybe 1, I don't remember. She was an infant or a toddler at best. And she was given to the temple where she was raised in the temple, and she was raised with explicit instructions to, never be around men, that she was going to be raised by angels in the temple, and all this stuff. So it's kind of interesting that, Hildegard basically says that he'll be corrupted by the devil from childhood, because we see that similar mimicry pattern, right? The child will be fully possessed by Satan at conception, lacking a human soul, which was an interesting addition. She also said that the Antichrist, the wounded to death and then recovered, that we see in Revelation, she said that wound will be caused by a sword, that the Antichrist will basically tell his followers to run him through with a sword so he can prove to them that he is who he says he is. His reign will end in chaos as people finally recognize his deception, leading to a final battle where he's cast down by divine thunder, right? Which is Jesus coming down, at the Mount of Olives. So that's kind of the main stuff on the Antichrist here that I've come across. And so we have to ask ourselves now, the big question, is Trump the Antichrist? I think the biggest identifier, I would say, out of all of that is that he would be a Jew that comes from the tribe of Dan. Whether or not he comes from the tribe of Dan, I think it's pretty clear that he will be a Jew, because the Jews don't believe in Christ, right? They all technically fall into the category of Antichrist. And so, I've speculated on various people. I've looked at, Zelensky, for example. He's a literal clown who's been exalted on the global stage, and he's young too, right? I don't know exactly when he began his public career, but, he was exalted on the world stage, and he can call down fire from heaven, calling down rockets on his enemies and whatnot. He performs all these sorts of miracles. He hasn't received a deadly wound. I don't know if he's from the tribe of Dan, and I also don't know how he would really be involved in the third temple construction. So he's probably not the Antichrist, just probably a type or a shadow of the Antichrist. There's a case that could be made for Netanyahu. I mean, he is a Jew who's directly over, the potential construction of the third temple. I don't know what tribe he's from. I should probably look into that. But I'm not really in the business of calling out who is the Antichrist. I mean, I speculated on X. You'll see some posts where I'm like, hey, maybe this is. Most of those are just, they're not very serious posts, right? Because who it is doesn't matter, right? As long as we are aligned with Christ and doing all the right things, then we don't really have to worry. And we just get to sit back and enjoy the show, grab some popcorn and just love what's going on, right? Just make sure that you have a good relationship with God and good relationship with Christ, and I don't think you have anything to worry about. So bottom line, no, Trump's not the Antichrist, Biden's not the Antichrist, Obama's not the Antichrist, and probably no American president would be the Antichrist. We would probably expect him to be a leader or a ruler over in the Middle East somewhere. Israel is obviously a good candidate. So I hope that this has helped clear up a little bit about the Antichrist. This is a little bit of a longer video. I think this is the longest one I've done yet, but it's because I was reading lots of quotes to you. So I want to thank everyone for the support you've given me so far. The videos are doing pretty well. Definitely TikTok is probably the best place that they're taking off, and all the others are just kind of trickling in. But as I do more, they're picking up. So yeah, definitely thank you for your time. Go ahead and like and share, and let people know about these videos. And I want to thank God and just leave you with a testimony that none of this stuff really matters as far as our salvation goes. As long as we're in the right place with God. That whoever the Antichrist is, he's going to come and he's going to go and he's going to be a nobody in the end. He's going to be powerless in the end, just like Satan. And we're all going to look at Satan at one day and be like, like, this is the guy who made all the nations of earth tremble. And it'll be the same way with the Antichrist and anyone else who thinks that they're this glorious figure to us that really isn't. There's really only one figure we should be worshiping, and that's God. So I leave you this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.